Hey everybody, and welcome to Old Roommates. Today on the show, we revisit the 1987 sitcom Married with Children. Stay tuned, and let's go on with the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to Old Roommates, the only podcast that revisits
No, sorry.
that revisits pop culture through a middle-aged lens. Today we are talking about Married with Children, taking a shallow dive in season 1 of Married with Children.
And we watched the whole thing. Also, sorry, I cut you off.
It's okay.
You're Christina. I'm Brian.
Oh yes, I'm Christina.
Yeah.
I think they know by now.
We watched the whole season, and I'm really proud of us.
Yes. Well, it was nice that it was 13 episodes.
For sure.
So,
But with commercials, because I watched it on Hulu.
Oh, you did see?
Rent it.
I got it from the library.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for that because,
You're welcome.
Christina, you introduced me to this idea of a library.
I do my best.
They do. My library has a wall of DVDs, and it makes things so much easier because it's really hard with Netflix and Hulu and all these things that I have that just constantly are dropping movies and picking things up, and it's really hard to plan a show like this with unstable movie and content providers.
True, and the library is like, you don't want to find a current movie there, but
that's right.
You know, 70s, 80s, 90s movies and TVs.
That's right.
They've got a slew of them. So anyway, we're talking about Married with Children. Your thoughts, Brian? Were you even old enough to watch it back then?
Yes, and I remember, I want to say it was on Sunday nights.
It was
so I was
nights.
87, I was 15. So yeah, so it was, right, 87?
Yeah, I was, so 87, yeah, that makes sense. I was about 19.
I feel like it was on Sunday nights. I didn't really, I found out some interesting things about it, but like, I remember actually avidly watching the show. And I remember probably watching a little bitterly because it's like the Sunday blues and, you know, it's like the next day of school. But I do recall liking the show. I remember laughing a lot. I, of course, thought it was like negative, but I did like it. I remember I really liked Kelly, and certainly not so much in the first season, but in later seasons she becomes a very funny character, and I definitely related more to the kids than the adults. But that was my take on it when I was 15. I did laugh.
Yeah, I did too. I remember really liking it. I remember, so this was one of the first shows on the Fox network, the new Fox network, and I remember it being billed as this raunchy, risque show. In fact, I don't think my mom really even wanted me watching it, but I was older. I mean, I was, 19 years old. Like, what are you going to do? But I remember her kind of being disgusted by it a little bit. And they, that they would, say things and do things that other shows didn't really do at that point in time. And I think it gave Fox kind of a bad reputation at first as being sort of that risque kind of network between that and like they had the Tracy Ullman show and they had the Simpsons eventually. So I remember, I think that was probably part of the appeal for me, is just like watching it and being like, laughing at some of the like raunchy kind of jokes. I did like it. I watched it all the time. I watched it every Sunday night. I think Sunday night was a good time slot.
I think it was Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was too. But I think it was a good time slot for families to watch a show because everyone was sort of home.
Yeah, I feel like very similarly, and also this, you mentioned the thing about the first Fox show and all that, the first Fox live action comedy. There's all the it's kind of in the history books for a few different reasons, but I was like, when did this show start? Because it felt like it was on forever, and it was. And so I went to Wikipedia and I think Mental Floss, and apparently the working title of the show was Not the Cosbys. They were going to call the show.
Oh my gosh!
They were going to call the show Not the Cosbys, and when it was pitched, they were trying to get Sam Kinison as Al and Roseanne Barr as Peggy.
Interesting.
And then Roseanne obviously went on to her very own show the next year, that same year in the fall. But just in that idea, it speaks so much to what the show is trying to do. I mean, really being sort of crass and crude for the sake of being crass and crude, and just being different. So now, how did you feel?
So I enjoyed it. I was a little bit. I was surprised that I was actually laughing even from the first episode. So I have this thing. I typically do not like the first episodes of sitcoms, of any sitcom, because I feel like they take too much time setting people up and, setting up the characters and trying to get you to know who they are, and they're like larger than life, and they're just an exaggerated version of what they end up being. So I typically don't really like the first episode of season 1 of any season. Sorry, of any series. And so I was surprised that I actually liked the first episode. I felt like the timing was great from the get-go. I felt like Ed O'Neill was great. And, Peg, one thing that struck me, and it struck me then as well, that she always dressed like she was in a different era. Like she always dressed like she was from like the 50s almost, right? Mm-hmm.
Her real hair, by the way, and I think the first couple seasons, because they had no budget, apparently.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, those are real hair.
Wow.
I was shocked, yeah.
I did think that there was, it was different than what I had remembered it being. Al Bundy's, I don't know if it was an Italian impersonation. Like, he was very, yo, Adrian. Very, Italian sounding, which I didn't remember. And it definitely smoothed out by the end of the series, at the end of the season.
Interesting.
But it was really kind of funny. Just, I'm like, whoa, what is he trying to do? I read up after that, I guess it was the character he based on, his uncle, his actual
funny.
uncle.
Okay.
So I don't know if he's Italian or not. But, yeah, it was cute. I liked it. And not that raunchy.
No, and in fact, when you said the thing about raunchiness and your mom and all that, not wanting you to watch it, I was like, oh my god, I forgot about that, that major element.
Yeah.
Where it was I remember feeling I'm watching something kind of scandalous, that maybe I shouldn't be watching. I do remember feeling that feeling, this is different TV. Mm-hmm. But I have to be honest, I think you liked it more than me. But here's the thing. I actually really appreciated some of the jokes.
Yeah.
And, we're just diving in. Al, I just needed more. I needed more, a little bit more heart. But just, because there is one point where Marcy says to Peg, Peggy, honestly, how can you stand to live with him? Live with a man like that? And Peggy's response truly is, he really isn't around that much. That's
he's usually in the bathroom or something.
She goes, between the bathroom and his job, I really don't see him much. And it's funny, and I think that is the beginning and end of so much of the humor of the show. It's they're not a team. Sometimes they're a team.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's I kind of wanted them. It's fun. I don't know. I feel like I have a lot to say. I wish. Everyone was sort of on their own team. The kids didn't like each other. The parents didn't like the kids. The kids didn't like the parents. The parents didn't like each other. And it was this is just a lot of toxicity. How am I saying that word? And I was challenged to grab onto this show in a where I'm I like this. Mm-hmm. It just didn't happen.
So this is funny. I feel almost completely opposite. Here we go. And I think it was more when I remembered him being a real jerk. Mm. So when I watched it this time, he was a lot nicer than what I had remembered him to be. And what I really liked about them, it's so funny you're saying that they just didn't like each other. Yes, they bickered, they were mean to each other and all that. But at the end of almost every episode, and even sometimes in the middle, they were a team. Like, you didn't see that they were a team. I really felt like they were a team, especially when like Steve and Marcy would come over and they would say something, and then there were several moments where they would be sitting on the couch and all of a sudden they would just look at each other and would like laugh, because they had that like sort of connection. Like, I felt that they really belonged together, even though they bickered a lot. There were a lot of sweet moments from Al that were very surprising because I didn't remember him being sweet like that. There were a couple, like there was a moment. What is this? I can't read my notes. This is terrible. When I do my notes, I can't do it. There were a couple moments when like they got in a fight. And she had said to Marcy, "Oh, he never lets me apologize. He never lets me apologize. He always interrupts me right before I say I'm sorry." And then she went to find him, and she's like, "Al," like she starts doing it, and he lets her continue talking. Oh, it was the anniversary.
Yeah.
It was the anniversary because he wanted to buy something special for her, and she ended up buying stuff and maxed out the credit card so he couldn't do it. And then he looked like the villain. And so he was like, "No, I'm not going to let you get away with it this time." And then they had this conversation in the garage. And then she's like, "Well, Al, I really am." And he's like, "Oh, well, how's the weather?" And he did end up interrupting her so she didn't have to say sorry. And I felt like there was a lot of that, like, sort of sweet moments at the end. And that surprised me because I didn't really remember that from before. But I did like that they came together as a team in like the moments that mattered, when mostly surrounding Steve and Marcy.
Yeah.
When when Peg was going to get a job, and she's like, "You should get a job," and they both look at each other like, like they both just laugh because they're on the same page. It works. Whatever they have, it worked. So I felt like there was a sweetness to it.
Yeah, and yet I feel like it was always begrudgingly, like in that scene you're talking about where they both laugh. I was like, well, Al's laughing because Peggy's lazy. Peggy's laughing because that would never happen. Like It's like I feel like, and I have to be honest, something that really bothered me is like so you're talking about Steve and Marcy, the neighbors. They would come over, and there was always that break between the men and the women.
Right.
I wrote down so many lines where it was like when the women sort of insult the men, it falls into the category of back hair. Like, you have a hairy back, or it's like, men, Peggy says, when men hit puberty, they all think they're Italian. And it's like this, so men, like, the insults towards men are like, oh, they're like, hey, hairy cavemen, right? When the men insult the women, I think it hits a little harder. It's like, they'll say, oh gosh, it was just like, it's always about the kitchen, being lazy. They should be cleaning houses. And it's like, whoa, I just feel like it's not quite fair.
Right.
Like saying like, oh, you have a hairy back, to comparing that to saying to someone like, why don't you go in the kitchen and cook dinner? Yeah. It's like that. It feels different. It doesn't feel like an even playing field. And it was so consistent in almost every single episode that I really had a hard time. Like, at the same time, there's some very funny dialogue, and that kept me watching.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I'm not going to end up renting the second season or anything. I didn't enjoy it that much.
Yeah.
I think it was more surprising than anything for me, but I did think the acting was great, and I especially for like, obviously as it goes on it gets better. I thought Al was great from the beginning. Peg's just consistently like,
I think she's so good. I think Katie,
throughout the whole thing. Marcy I liked. Steve I could do without.
I agree.
I think he's so replaceable, which was ironic because he was replaced. And I looked that up too. I thought it was more scandalous, but it really wasn't. He just left to do Broadway.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I thought that was like a big thing. But even the
Marcy
kids,
though became a lesbian. Oh no, I shouldn't say became, but she came out.
A lesbian.
So no, I said it right.
Is that what happens, Brian?
She came out.
Yes. Sorry. I did. Yes, I knew about that actually. And the kids were good. for being kids. Christina Applegate is great.
They didn't have much to do the first season at all.
No, it got better as the season went on.
Yeah.
And I liked that. And I had forgotten that, like, it was kind of Bud sort of...
bribed.
He was like the only smart one in the whole family, really.
True.
Right? That's sort of how
Well, he used information to bribe people, and like he had it all figured out. Yeah,
he was smart. So, but I thought that the acting was great, and I really liked the lines. In fact, it was kind of annoying at one point because there was my biggest complaint midway through the season was there were so many good lines. They were almost like too many, where Al would say something, it would be funny, and like the audience would laugh, although it might have been canned. I couldn't figure it out. It seemed mostly canned. Yeah. But the audience would, whatever, quote, laugh, and then Peggy would say something, and you couldn't hear what she said because the laughter was over her. So, and it was like, but it was like interesting how many funny
got buried
lines.
In that. And they were still laughing at the other joke. Yeah, I agree with you. I just laughed because I wrote down a lot of lines because they were really funny. Like, but mean. Like, it's like truly episode 2. Al is such a dick. Like, he throws the salads away, but he throws the plates away too. Like, there's just things where I'm like, really? But then something happens and Peg says, I'm upset. And he's like, why? And Peg's like, because you don't find me attractive anymore. And Al says, so? But it's like...
But you're laughing.
I'm laughing.
But you're laughing.
It's so mean.
It is, but I think that's part of its charm. The show is about being like the opposite of the Cosbys.
You know what I think it is? Right. I think it's that I binged it.
Yeah, that could be it too.
I watched like 4 episodes.
Yeah, it was it was hard to binge. I couldn't do more than 3.
Yeah, because it's just the same note over and over. It's like, we don't like each other, but we're married and kids are keeping us together. And and we have these perfect neighbors that we're going to try and ruin. Which
is funny because they, I don't know, like, did you feel like you were on the side of Marcy and Steve? Like,
no.
How did you feel? Okay, so you were for them.
Because they were so, like, I mean, talking about a spectrum, like, they were on, like they were in a way, totally another level where you're like, ew.
But don't you feel like that was, like, that is what kind of made it work? Because Peg and Al were so exaggeratedly, like, miserable, I guess. And then... the Steve and Marcy, the newlyweds, idealistic, and this is how you should raise your children.
Yeah.
This is how, you should do this. But then Al and Peg had more of an influence on them, especially Steve, watching like the Smut and, doing all that stuff. Like, they were more of the influence on the newlyweds. So anyways, it was kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, they were mean, but I wrote here, they work their fight, they're mean, but they come together at the end, and it's surprisingly sweet.
Yeah. So there were a couple scenes where they worked together very well, and it was like good, and it was amazing. I thought the comedic acting was so strong with when the dog, and you know how much I love animals.
Yes.
So episode 3 of season 1, spoiler alert, there's a neighborhood watch crew because there's been a lot of robberies in the neighborhood, and Steve and Marcy get a dog, a vicious dog. And this dog, you don't ever see him, right? But you hear that he ate a cat, like all this kind of stuff, and that the dog is super violent, and that even like Steve and Marcy have to wear these like body suits to pat him. So. But Al mistakes the dog for a burglar and shoots the dog. And there's a lot of jokes in there that are very funny. But before he shoots the dog, he has to find his gun and his bullets. And Peg has hidden the bullets in his bowling ball. In just that sequence, like, at one point they're like, Peggy's like, call the cops. And he picks up the phone. And he's like, oh, sorry. And he hangs up the phone. And Peg's like, what's wrong? He's like, Kelly's on the phone. Yeah. So it's like there are those moments where it's like, to your point about sweetness, where it's like they do when they're forced to sort of work together. Right. You feel that family. You feel that family bond.
That's how I Yeah.
I wish there were more moments. Is that fair?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that if we had watched like season 3 or season 4, it may have been less of those moments. I feel like it was because it was season 1 that they were a little bit more together. But I don't know. I kind of forget. I thought that Marcy was very effective as the annoying know-it-all.
I think it's the last episode of the season where she's holding the salmon and she falls backwards.
Yes.
And it's so, like, weird. Like, her fall is so weird, but so good. It's like she is falling how Marcy would fall.
Yes,
like that's
for
a
sure.
Marcy. Like
that whole thing with her holding the fish the whole episode, it just made me chuckle every time because you almost forget sometimes that she's in the room.
Yes,
and then they pan over and she's still sitting there in a towel holding the salmon. Oh my gosh, that was
very funny. She was very good. I think the cast
was really good.
Super game. Yeah, and Amanda Bierce.
Surprisingly, the show never won an Emmy, and none of the actors were nominated.
Ever.
Isn't that surprising?
Peggy's really good.
She's so
good in it. I really thought she'd stand out.
I wonder if it has to do with the fact that it was on Fox.
Content. Well, and the content. And I read, too, because it's like, it was never, I want to get this right, never in any of the top ratings. Like, it was never a highly rated show.
Well, it was also not national.
Right, because not everyone had Fox. It was on for 11 seasons, 259 episodes. I cannot believe they got that much material out of that premise. But I will say, one of the classic things that I absolutely remember back then is Al putting his hand down his pants to relax. Now that I am a middle-aged man, I like even when Al does it, it does not look comfortable.
It doesn't look comfortable.
And I'm like, what is the point of that? Just unbutton your like. It's like sure if you unbutton your pant button, it's like a little more relaxing. But putting your hand, and it's not even like his full hand. I don't know what he's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a strange thing. But I remember being a kid and laughing at the outrageousness of a man putting his hand in his pants on television.
Very risque.
Very risque.
I liked that there were throwbacks to older episodes.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Steve said, remember what they did to our dog.
And Marcy, at the last season, she was wearing a towel from the Come and Go Hotel. Oh, the Come and Go Motel.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it said it on. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so funny. And of course, the...
Oh, he's like my favorite towel.
Yeah.
Or the good towel. My good towel.
The good towel, something. So, and what else?
I will say, just in case there's any confusion, episode 9, I wrote it down. Al says, "I love complaining." Mm-hmm. Like I just like that. It's just that I just struggle. Like even with he says, so there's episode 10 where he truly says to her, "Gee, Peg, I love waking up. I love." When you wake up before me, I have the whole bed to myself. Mm-hmm. And the audience laughs. I'm like, that's not really... Is that a funny line? I don't know. So that's why I think maybe it's canned laughter, like a laugh track. But Peggy's line after is truly, "Gee, Al, you'd hardly know it the way you rest your foot into my back or whatever." Like
I thought it was odd. Yeah, I think that's what she's saying. Yeah. It's like he's kicking her out of bed. So
he really just doesn't like want her in bed. Like it's not. I don't find it funny. I really don't. I mean, like it's so weird.
So
we should probably take a break really quick. Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a quick break. Hey there, it's Brian and Christina. We just wanted to take this break to thank you for listening to Old Roommates, the only podcast that revisits pop culture through a middle-aged lens. Please subscribe to Old Roommates on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And give us a rating or review while you're there.
And if you have any questions, comments, or observations, shoot us an email at oldroommatespod@gmail.com. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Old Roommates. Thanks for listening, and now, back to the show. And we're back with Old Roommates, talking about Married with Children. Any final thoughts, Christina?
Final thoughts. I did think it was funny at the end of a scene in episode 6. The audience clapped at the end of a scene. I think they did that throughout the first few episodes. But it was like the end of the scene and everyone's like... It was just very retro. You'd never see that anymore.
Well, was it something touching or meaningful?
No, it was just the end of the scene.
Wow.
End scene. And they clapped because it was the end of the scene. It was funny. I really liked that that when Steve and Marcy came over, they always knocked.
Yeah.
And someone always had to answer the door.
Yeah.
I feel like that doesn't happen much anymore. People just kind of walk in.
Yeah, right.
Or just come in.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, exactly.
Oh, interesting.
So I thought that was kind of funny and retro as well. Let's see. I don't know. I don't really have much else. I don't think.
I will...
I'm sorry. I have one more thing. I just noticed in a couple of the episodes, they actually had, when they were, serving dinner and things, they actually had, brand names. And I feel like that's definitely...
Yeah.
A throwback. People used to have, brand name, I think it was, was it Tri-C orange juice or something like that. And it's, a real brand, but, clearly this company is not sponsoring the episode. But it's not X'd out either.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was kind of funny. It's kind of a sign of the times.
Interesting. I'm trying to think. There was something you said about the door, and I was like, oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot of the, keep the phone, stay off the phone, I'm expecting a call. That is a sign of the times. A couple of really funny things. Again, I know I sounded like I'm really not liking it or that I didn't like it, but there's some truly funny dialogue, and I do think Katie Sagal as Peggy is great. It was just maybe because I binged it. It's that constant feeling of negativity, but some really funny stuff. Particularly in the last 2 episodes, Peggy's favorite game show is Spell That Word. And she's just sitting there watching people and it's the words are just, I don't even remember what the word was, but they're not this is not a challenging word.
And she was proud of herself that she got it right.
Yeah, and but I think there was a missed opportunity in that. And so that episode, Al quits his job.
Oh,
so he's home. And you mentioned their sort of their relationship when they're sitting on the couch together. They're sitting on the couch together, and Al is watching Peggy soap operas, and he keeps going, "Who's that?
Who's that?
Who's that? Who's that? Who's that?" And she's getting really frustrated. But I was like, that would have been a really funny thing if they gave that an episode of him being out of work and seeing them sort of bond over Peggy's activities when she's being lazy or whatever. That could have been really funny. But I did think it was funny that everything was who's that? And the couple really funny bits. Last episode 13 of season 1, Marcy obviously drops the fish, and she has to put the fish in the cleaner, whatever. She washes it and then puts it in the dryer. And Marcy says to Peg, "Does the dryer buzz when it's done?" And Peggy says, "How would I know?" Yeah. And she's so annoyed by the question. It's just great. And then the final line is... So the whole time they have these tickets to this the closing of a burger joint.
Yes.
Right. And Al keeps calling his friends, and all the friends have strange nicknames, like One-Eyed Jack. I don't know, all these things. And then Peg's like, "I'm going to call my friend Easy Edie." You remember her, Al? The one who turned you down in high school?
Yeah. That was a great impersonation, by the way.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you.
It sounded just like her.
So funny. Easy Edie, the one who turned you down in high
It's
school.
That's what I mean.
It's really
smart writing.
It is smart
They
writing.
had a lot of that smart writing.
Yeah,
I was impressed.
And it begins and ends in its own sentence, and it's all their own world, and they're creating their own scenarios to be funny. But there is a lot of creativity and humor in that. And again, Peggy, and I don't even know if it's her timing or just the delivery minus the timing. But sometimes she can be so dry and so funny, and I think it's a really
it seems very easy for her.
Yeah.
It's effortless that she just delivers these funny.
I am surprised she's never been nominated, to your earlier
I
point.
was surprised that none of them, or the show or anything, has ever been nominated. I was very surprised about that. Did you notice in episode 10, it was the poker game?
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, that was funny.
They
yes.
were picking Jamie Lee Curtis.
The rest of them were kind of normal, I think. But no, what I was going to say.
It's episode 8 for our listeners. Episode 8 is the poker game, Christina.
What? No.
My notes clearly say...
No, episode 8 is when she gets a job.
No. Wait a minute.
Episode 8 is when she gets a job.
Episode...
Anyways,
we'll figure it out anyway.
We'll figure it out. My question was, did
sure.
you notice, so Steve loses like all of his money in a poker game?
Yeah.
And he says, oh, that was my share of the mortgage. $300. And I think they live in Chicago.
That opens up the idea of Al works at a shoe store,
right.
making minimum wage, someone says.
Yes.
Minimum wage. Peggy said he's paid in nickels, rolls of nickels.
Yes.
So they have a house.
Yeah.
Bigger than my apartment.
And speaking of $300, when he thought his boss died, he spent $300 on a flower arrangement.
Yes, and yes, that's right.
So that would, be equivalent to like $1,000 today?
Yeah, that's kind of
if it's the same as Steve's. And now we can make the assumption that Marcy makes more money.
Right.
And so maybe he doesn't have quite, it's not maybe a 50-50 share, but still, even a third of it.
Yeah.
You're not going to spend the same amount on flowers. Thought that was interesting.
That's crazy.
Consistent wise. And
to put a nice little bow on this conversation, when push comes to shove, Al is being seduced by an airline stewardess in episode. So now we're gonna disagree, but I think it's episode 10, and he is going back to his wife, and she says, or to see Peg, and she's like, "You must love your." Maybe you know what I did.
The stewardess was. That was episode 7.
You know what I think I did? I entered it. Christina, maybe I owe you an apology.
Oh, can you say that again, please? A little louder.
I owe Christina an apology. I was entering in my phone down, and then when I took the notes, I went up. So maybe that's what happened.
Oh, well, there you go.
But I don't know if I'm completely wrong.
You are absolutely 100% wrong.
So he says,
yes.
Did you write it down? He says, she's a pip, but she's my pip.
Oh, yeah.
And
see, sweet. That's what
and the audience
about.
Went, oh.
And how funny was it when he came home? I chuckled when he came home with the blonde wig.
That was.
I laughed.
And he picked her right up and ran up the stairs.
Yeah.
Very funny.
And I am glad that sales guy
gross.
who's so obnoxious. That was his last episode of the season.
Oh.
In episode 7.
Okay.
So I was happy not to see him again.
He wasn't in the second to last episode?
No, he wasn't. I was looking for him because I was like, this is interesting that he's not here. Because he usually had like a kind of big role when they were showing the shoe store. So I don't know if he just got another job or what. And a couple of little observations, and I don't know if you picked up on these at all. In episode 7, at the end, there were the two stewardesses, and the one that was with this obnoxious sales guy says, "Oh, do you want to join us?" And Al says, "Yes, I do." I had to rewind it. I'm like, who does he remind me of then? He reminded me so much of Bill Murray. He had like, it was a Bill Murray.
I could totally
Did you see that?
Totally.
And then the other one, which was so weird, in episode 9, and only in episode 9, not another, I didn't notice it in the other ones, Steve had a very Kevin Spacey air to him. It was really interesting. I'm like, whoa.
You know what? Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. No. That was pretty much all I was saying.
Sign of the Times, as someone who has this affliction, Al and Steve totally sporting bald spots. And you don't ever see that in television anymore. Never. Everyone has a full head of hair.
Never.
The magic of television. I don't know how it happens. Al and Steve both have serious bald, like real bald spots.
Very interesting. Yeah. Definite sign of the times.
Yeah. Think about it. I don't even know I can't even think of a single actor.
Nope.
No. Although they're either bald,
right.
but there's only a few of those, so it's like hair plugs, toupees. I mean, because people. I mean, how else does it happen? I mean, like, what do you do?
Right. He doesn't even have a bald spot on Modern Family.
Does he? Oh my, maybe it doesn't, or doesn't
he does.
At least it's not as well. He's
not as
gray.
noticeable. He's
Yeah,
gray,
it's pretty. Kids are pretty short. Yeah.
By the way, were you at all taken aback by how young he looked in the first episode?
Al.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carl said it. I remembered the show pretty well, and I remembered him looking like that. It's funny. I don't really connect it like, oh, he looks so old now. I think because that show was on for 11 years.
Yes.
And so it's
and
like...
he didn't do much in between, right? I don't remember him doing much.
Well,
some character acting, maybe.
I did. That's right. Because I did read an article that said he lost a movie role because of Married with Children, because they did a test screening and of some scenes. It wasn't. I don't think it was a major role, but I think they recast him because test audiences were laughing. He was a detective. He was playing a detective or something, and but apparently they were like really struggling because his character. I mean, that in a way it's a compliment. In a way it's bad.
Yeah, I would imagine as an actor you
it's
don't
bad.
want that to happen.
But you're that convincing of a certain role.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's doing just fine.
He's fine now for sure. One other point, I thought it was interesting that the season finale had, like, it could have been any episode at all. It wasn't like a season finale-ish.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It just didn't seem like... Did you feel like it was a season finale?
Oh, this of season 1.
Of season
I think
1.
the series finale, sorry.
It just seemed like it could have been any episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it also seemed like it was more about Marcy and Steve in some ways.
Yeah.
Because it was all like... Well, they were trying to... Oh, no, I guess not. Because they were... Well, the idea was they were trying to get out of the house.
Right. And Kelly was
but
had
they were
a problem,
putting out these
and then Bud
fires.
had a problem.
Yeah.
But
Well, I guess... Yeah, I agree. It did not
It
seem
could
like
have
a
been
season.
any episode.
Yeah, it did not seem like a season finale.
No, not at all.
Question time?
Question time.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
So I have...
Are you doing like true match game style?
I'm doing...
Oh, sorry.
He just tried to peek at the answer.
Not.
If you get it
Well,
right
I did,
away... If
but
you
I
get it right away...
Here's a pathetic thing.
I'll expect another apology.
I peeked knowing I wouldn't be able to read.
Yeah,
read from
I could
here.
probably put it right in front of your face and you wouldn't be able to read it. Okay, are you ready for the question?
Yes. Yeah, here we go.
All right. Peg was so mad at Al.
How mad was she?
She was so mad, she didn't just cook his dinner, she blanked it.
Ooh.
I hope you guys all appreciate our musical abilities.
Ding. I'm in.
All right, I am too.
Want to reread it for the listeners?
Peg was so mad at Al.
How mad was she?
She was so mad, she didn't just cook his dinner, she blanked it.
Ate it.
Oh! That's not bad. It's
what'd
not a
you
match.
have? Oh.
Poisoned it.
Good one.
Thanks.
Not a match.
Not a match.
Christina, I'm giving you a fuck, marry, kill.
Okay.
FMK. With these three Married with Children characters.
Okay.
Al.
Steve.
Al's shoe store coworker. I know that we just talked about him.
All right.
I did write this question.
And we don't know his name.
Well, the stewardess is shouting it out.
Oh, yeah. And then she's like, he's not here.
That was good.
Funny. Oh, you know what I have to say about that episode, too? It was so funny. All of, like, the little, like, stewardess things that he had. Like, he opened up the mini bar and it had all, like, the little single, what do they call them? Nips. All the nips for his bar. And then... the occupied, unoccupied on the door. I thought that was funny.
That is cute.
That was adorable.
Cute details.
Okay, Al, shoe salesman, and Steve. Oh boy. This is a toughie.
You're kidding.
It's kind of.
What? All right. I'm surprised by this. I wrote them as I wrote it. Like,
really?
Oh yeah. Because I feel like I know. Wait. I feel like I know how you operate.
We'll see. You always say this,
I know,
and I don't
think
you ever get anything right.
I know.
Okay, no offense. I don't either. So, I'm not really confident in my answers, but these are my answers.
Here we go.
Okay, Al.
Wait. Al, what? What would you do?
I'm about to tell you when you interrupted me.
Sorry.
Wow. It's going to be an evening of apologies. So, Al, I would kill.
Wow.
Shoe salesman. I don't even know. I guess I would F him. Although I think he'd probably be very selfish, so he's probably not going to be that good. And Steve, I would marry. It's a terrible choice. What did you think?
All right, I thought you would marry Al because of all the tender moments.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you would fuck the guy, the shoes.
Oh, so that one was
guy.
right.
And then I thought you would kill Steve. Bummer.
Yeah, well,
Bummer. Well, because
that?
Steve is like...
Steve is so... I would not want to marry Steve, honestly. I think you're probably closer to it. I think I would... I said marry Steve, but I think that you're probably right. I probably would want to marry Al.
I mean, Al's sarcastic and negative, but I think you could navigate that. Probably, as...
That's probably better than wishy-washy Steve.
Yeah. Well, oh god, everything was like, yes, honey. But then, like, the second he's with, like, a man, he changed. I mean, he's very... Steve is very easily manipulated and coerced. Like, he's not a good character.
No. I'm glad he left.
Marcy's a much better character. All right. And that... So, wait, really quick. I have to be honest, I didn't like it as much as I did back then, but I appreciate the writing more. But I will not be revisiting it.
I think I will not be revisiting it either. I think I agree with you. I didn't like it as much as I liked it then, and I appreciated the writing and the acting. But yeah, I will not be revisiting it either. I was just surprised at it.
Good times.
Good times.
And that is it for us and for this episode of Old Roommates. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Old Roommates on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And give us a rating or review while you're there, please. If you have an idea for the show, a suggestion, or a comment, email us at oldroommatespod@gmail.com.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Old Roommates. This is Christina.
And this is Brian.
Thanks again for listening. Till next time.